Call to order for Watertown City Council work session public hearing on April 11th, public discussion, April 11th, 2023. Please rise while Councilman Vilhauer leads us in prayer and a special moment of silence.
The moment of silence is for the individuals killed in the tragic car accident last Friday up towards Florence. So keep those people in your thoughts and prayers. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather tonight. We thank you for the wonderful change in the weather and what it is doing to our spirits and everything going on out and about. And we thank you for the people that are so passionate in their love for this community that are in this room tonight and maybe listening online. We thank you for that, and we ask that we can reach an agreement, something that we're all comfortable and live with and happy with, and we ask you give us the wisdom to make those decisions. And all God's people said, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. City Manager Mack, please call the roll.
Bueller. Here. Danforth. Here. Holeen. Here. Paulson. Shetty.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
Rolls called.
Quorum is established. Chair will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have one item on our agenda tonight, and that is just a public discussion on City Hall and street facility. I'm going to make some comments to precede the meeting, and then we will hear from everyone who wants to speak. The City Council has already had our public discussion on it, where we have talked with each other, exploring the different ideas. We had that a week ago. So tonight is just about hearing the people who want to express their opinions about the City Hall and the street facility. So we will listen to everyone, and at the end, that will be basically the end of it. But I do want to start with a few comments for the public. And to start with saying that there's been some really good news that has come about this. There has been a lot of increase in public awareness about City Hall, and a couple things that I have noticed, and I think I speak for the council, is that awareness has revealed a couple different things for us. Number one, nobody doubts the need for a City Hall. A couple years ago, that might not have been the case, but by and large, nobody really has a problem with us trying to address a City Hall. The question is about location. We have also not had a lot of people say that it's costing too much money. If anything, they say, spend a little bit more money, put it at a different location. So we have heard those things. So I will speak on behalf of the council, but they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I will speak for myself. We are going to solve both the street facility and the City Hall problem, and we are going to do it with this council. We are going to do it now because we have the momentum. We're all about solving issues that have been long hanging over this community. So we are going to address both of these issues, and I think that is the will of the public. The street facility, while I'm going to pass it off to staff to discuss it, first I want to explain something that the staff they were not trying to be secretive or push something. When the Wells Fargo rebid or remodeling costs came in high, the council dictated at a public meeting to direct staff to explore an option. They came forward with an option that they thought would work, and that was for the combined City Services Center at the Highway 20 location. That was for us to consider. That proposal was brought mainly for financial reasons because it was cheaper, less expensive than rebidding and remodeling the Wells Fargo building. All along this time, since the City Hall discussion has come back into the public awareness, we have heard from several people about the desire to keep City Hall downtown. I will just speak on behalf of myself here. That has always been my desire. A year ago, I was working on finding locations, and I have had a long conversation with City Manager Mack, and we have agreed to explore that option. I'm not saying that that's what we're going to do, but we are going to at least, I have several locations that would work downtown. I will not speak about them publicly because we don't want to talk about a location's pros and cons and then have it fall apart because there can be some sensitivity, but by and large, it's city-owned property. And at least this way, if we explore that option, then we would have a third option. We would have the combined street facility, we would have a Wells Fargo remodel, but then we would also have a downtown location, at least for consideration. We could find out if it's going to be around the same cost as a remodel of Wells Fargo would be, because again, just speaking for myself, but putting that much money into a 50-year-old building has always given me pause. If we can build new for roughly the same cost, then that is something that the public should at least be aware of and the council can hear. Again, I'm not saying that this is where we're going, but this is what we will explore. But with that said, I'm not trying to rush anything through, but we have momentum to solve both the street department and the city hall question right now. And I believe that it is the will of the council to solve both, and I think it's the will of the community. So with that said, I thank you all for coming here tonight to address us. We will take comments from anyone who would like to speak. I just ask you to identify yourself, say if you're speaking on behalf of an organization or just for yourself, state your comments, anything that you want. I am not even going to ask people to be unique. Go ahead. If you want to say the exact same thing that someone else has, that's your right. We are here to listen, and that's what we are going to do tonight. So we will take anyone who wants to speak, we will listen, and then take that into consideration as we move forward. So, thank you. I will open it up for public comments. Yes, actually, City Manager Mack and Director Von Eye, why don't you just precede it with a few comments about how we got here?
Sure, I will kick it off, and then Heath can pull up the presentation that we've put together for reference if anyone wants to reference that during their comments or discussion. So how we landed here today, as we've explained multiple times, looking to solve, as the mayor said, both the city hall and street maintenance facility challenges that we face. In April of 2019, the previous council issued a bond, a $15 million bond, to complete the city hall renovation of Wells Fargo and to build a new street maintenance facility. During the time that has followed since then, we've seen some increased costs and some challenges that weren't foreseen at the time. We came to the council in spring of last year, I can't remember the exact date, before we put the Wells Fargo renovation out to bid and asked the council to increase the budget that they had set at that time by $1 million. At that time, the estimates were already showing higher than what we'd planned. And the council agreed that that was the way to go, allocated an additional $1 million, and we put Wells Fargo out to bid. The bids came back in $2.4 million over that new estimate that we had gotten. At that time, council authorized staff to work with our architects, TSP here in town, and negotiate with the bidder on that project to see if we could find some savings and come to an agreement on that. We created a whole list of things that could be value engineered out of that renovation, which we have the list that we can pull up here shortly if anyone would like to see it. And after looking at the list, thought, well, maybe we are taking enough out of this project that it does undermine the integrity of the end product. So council at that time decided to reject the bid outright and directed staff to see what other options might be available, which led us down a discussion of we need to build a street maintenance facility. We own land. What would it look like if we create some shared spaces between the street maintenance staff and City Hall staff? What's that look like? Where can we gain efficiencies? Things like that. So that's how we landed on this idea of a city services center versus a separate City Hall and street maintenance facility. Spent a lot of time working the numbers, working with both JLG, who is our architect, and RJM, who has been selected as the construction manager at risk for the street facility project. And that's what we're here. We've just been discussing and vetting and trying to discern, what is the right decision. And I will step back and answer any questions you all might have, and Heath might have more technical information to share as it relates to the facilities themselves.
Director Von Eye, would you like to comment?
If you'd like, Mayor, I could touch on a few of the details, or I could just pause and wait for discussion.
If you think it is pertinent to precede the conversation tonight with the details, by all means.
Perfect. I'll just plug a couple things in briefly here. I'm sharing my team, or my screen to Teams. As a follow-up to what Manager Mack described, I wanted to pull up a cost estimate spreadsheet that Assistant City Engineer Justin Peterson and myself helped put together with the aid of our consultants. So back in August, when we rejected the bids for the Wells Fargo project, this was one of our next tasks at hand. We had 4 alternatives that we were bouncing around in our heads at a staff level. One of them is the one that's been proposed as a combined facility, and we had a cost estimate associated with that. The next one was a public works type complex where engineering community development moves out to the street facility. So we have like a public works complex where 3 of the 6 divisions are all housed in one location. And then a smaller city hall footprint where we would buy some existing building downtown that's maybe not quite turnkey ready but close to it. That was one of the options that we vetted as well. And then another one was the street facility standalone with Wells Fargo remodel. And then the 4th one was the street facility standalone with a new off-site, not Wells Fargo City Hall option. You'll see these yellow highlighted numbers here really are why we steered towards this joint complex. For about the same money, those first 3 options, $25 million. These numbers are old and they don't include all the updated numbers that are in my slideshow, so these numbers are a little lower than the previously shared numbers. But anyway, and then you add about a $2 million difference in for the all-new option, all-new street facility, all-new city hall. So simply from a cost comparative analysis, that's why we gravitated towards this joint complex, which led us into presenting that to the council over this being the 4th public meeting now that we've had on this discussion that relates to the joint facility. So I just wanted to give some context and some history how we landed on this based on an assessment of several options. This wasn't the only one that we were laser focused in on, but that's the one that rose to the top in our considerations. There's 30 slides here I'll go through within 35 minutes, if that's, no, I'm just kidding. I'm going to blow through these in 2.5 minutes, but we gave some history on the old City Hall, when it was built, some of the concerns we've had with it lately, how it doesn't serve the community very well. Gave a little bit of history on what we've looked at previously for City Hall locations in 2016 and then again in 2019. And then, of course, 2020, we landed on the purchase of the Wells Fargo building. We pursued a remodel on that. We bid it. Those bids came in high, just as Manager Mack cited, to the tune of about $2.4 million over our architect's estimate. That made us start considering value engineering that bid. Can we negotiate it down and get it more into a more reachable cost? But we soon found out we were starting to peel things out of that bid. That's this whole list here. That are things that we realize, we're going to have to spend money on these things at some point in the future. Does it make sense to hold them off now only to incur those costs 5-10 years from now, maybe sooner? And that was a summary on the City Hall discussion. Then we also shared information on the current street facility. Of course, it's old. It's far from meeting the needs we have for operations in our street maintenance division of Public Works. We've got a lot of valuable, millions of dollars of equipment sitting outside year-round, getting sun faded and weather rotted. It's not conducive to our winter operations where we've got machinery plugged in rather than inside a heated storage building. Long story short, we landed on buying 27 acres out along Highway 20 to house that street facility. It's a great location. It's a geographical center of the city limits of Watertown, so when our street plows are going out to the west side of the lake or out on the east side of the interstate, it's got great access for all those functions that the street division perform. Then we got into the cost analysis of these options. And again, these numbers are more updated than the older ones I showed a minute ago. But we then started looking at the cost estimate for Wells Fargo remodel and a new street maintenance facility and a combined facility, and ended up subsequently coming up with a joint facility option. Again, that option rose to the top primarily for financial reasons, to the tune of a couple $1,000,000, depending on which option you're comparing it against. We had some architectural renditions that were created from our architect on what that might look like out there on the Highway 20 location. Some layouts of that site, what the site plan could be. It would include an administrative office up front along Highway 20, and then the shops and the working area, of course, out back in a 15-acre lot of the 27 that we purchased. We laid out several spreadsheets with the funding mechanisms and how to fiscally plan for carrying out these projects. I would venture to guess that if we shift gears from this plan to a downtown city hall and a street facility, we can lay out something very similar to a fiscal plan that is within reach over the next 2 to 3 years, just like we have here on this spreadsheet for the joint complex. Again, this spreadsheet compared the cost between a joint complex and a Wells Fargo remodel and street maintenance facility. We talked about the finances, issuing of a bond to cover this and to get it done within that 3-year time span and the impact that has on our city finances. Between these two slides, you'll note that blue line shifts from the year 2029 to the year 2031. I wanted to highlight this too because, again, if we move forward with getting both these projects done, it's likely that a bond will be necessary in order for that to happen. And these two slides are important because they were created by our finance officer, and it shows her level of comfort in proceeding with a bond to carry the weight to get these across the finish line. And that really brought us to the end of the information we were sharing, and I can pull up any of these slides later in the discussion tonight if needed, and I'll pass it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Director Von Eye. So now we will open it up for public hearing. Mrs. Solberg, since I see you here, I know that we are in somewhat of a disagreement. I call it downtown, you call it uptown, but we will allow both terms.
Business uptown for 25 years, plus when we had the shopper, we were also uptown. And I guess there are parts of this that I'm concerned about, and there are parts of it that I think are really a good idea and a positive thing for Watertown. I love the idea that we're taking the street department away from the high school. I have often wondered how we take those big vehicles in and out of there without running into a high school kid that's zipping down the road a little too fast. I think that's a super idea. But I really want to see the city hall remain in the uptown. If the city cannot continue to support the core part of a community, how can we ask other businesses to invest in it? You know, several years ago, we built the new police department that we have right now, and at that time, the city was looking to build it out on the east side. And while we had the money from a grant to build that, money wasn't necessarily the concern, but it made more sense to have it in the uptown close to the other units of which they do work with day to day. And the way I look at City Hall, it's the same thing. The police department, the courthouse, the fire department, they're all in the core. And by having all of it together, will make it more practical and functional as far as operating costs. The one thing I am concerned about is another bond issue. The second penny sales tax, I hear all the time, our streets are in disarray. And that second penny sales tax is being used to fund a lot of things for our community. I guess I just would like to encourage you to keep City Hall uptown. And I guess, you know, I had not seen the finances that he just proposed before. And so that was pretty interesting. I just wanted to share something that a friend of mine put on Facebook today, and it said, "Wanted encouragers. We have a surplus of critics." My friend, I know is right, but we are here tonight to encourage you to do what's right for the city by keeping it uptown.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Chris Shulkin, former executive director of the Watertown Development Company. Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity and council members to visit tonight, and certainly agree with the assessment of the need for a street department and also City Hall. And in fact, Rob and his crew could have that thing plastered in gold, and I think we'd all agree as him and his crew do a great job. So, no doubt. But I do think that the one thing that I guess like to portray is the intangible benefits that maybe don't get talked about enough, that are hard to relate to keeping City Hall downtown. And if we rewind, 5, 6, 10 years ago, I certainly remember before we had parking problems, before our storefronts were full, before we had 60, 70 million of downtown redevelopment, before we had 200 plus apartment units built, before we had the Goss renovated at 5+ million, before we had a downtown park, all these things, there was a plan for a downtown with the charrette, H2O 20, and things like that. So there was community input, there was a plan, and people committed to feedback that the community put forward. So when I joined the development company, there was a roadmap, and one of the things that we did was follow the roadmap and said, okay, let's go find developers to develop our downtown. And we found one at the time. And so during all those conversations, we met with probably 20 from all different areas, South Dakota, other parts of the region. And they all asked, what's the plan? Had we had stated, well, I think City Hall would be planning on leaving downtown, I could almost certainly say the outcome is different, because developers and investors look for reasons to not do something. So all these things that we talk about have happened because there was commitment by organizations, the city included. We're good partners in helping downtown get redeveloped, and a lot of the folks in the room and not in the room. So downtown, our City Hall, and we hear things about, well, how many people use City Hall? Well, I know developers, and they come to town to come to City Hall meetings for their planning and zoning meetings, City Hall hearings. They have to drive in the downtown, past all the projects that are happening, seeing all the good stuff. And as we know, success brings on other success. And that was certainly true. As we were seeing things happen, we were getting calls and people were coming to tour our downtown. So I guess I want to keep that in mind as we talk about why it's important. You know, we hear it's an emotional decision. Agreed, downtowns are emotional. Pride's an emotion. There's momentum's an emotion. Momentum's a hard thing to have. As you guys are probably aware, there's been some announcement of some closings of downtowns, storefronts. Certainly, City Hall leaving would not be a good thing to help promote that. I think it would go back to where we were 5+ years ago. So all these things, as they relate to economic development, community development, I just think have to be taken into consideration. Yes, there are financial considerations, but development in your town is certainly one of them. And where cities put their money and their effort, you can certainly watch private development follow, as we've seen over the past 5+ years. So appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me for just a moment. I'm going to see if I can move that computer screen so that anyone who testifies can be seen on camera.
Probably won't, no. Yep, I can just turn it like that. Is that better?
How about if people could just testify on the microphone on this side and then slide that all the way over to there. I understand that chair isn't as quite as comfortable, but we could switch the chairs around. That's probably easier. So, yeah, thank you.
You betcha. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. My name is Joe Vitek, and I'm your former Chief of Police. And I'd just like to share 2 experiences with you that I've learned as an outsider coming to Watertown in 2005. I knew when I came here that you needed a new police department, and I could see it only because I was from someplace else. But I had to do the process of educating. And I think you're absolutely right, Mayor, that there's no one that would dispute the need for a new City Hall. I can remember that we held a couple of Halloween outings here in the basement, and we did that for like 2 years or 3 years maybe when I first came to town just to do some community policing. And I saw the signs and I thought, whoa, this is not very good with rayon and, you know, fallout shelter and asbestos and that sort of thing. So I don't think anybody would argue the fact that you need a City Hall. Not only that, Mayor, but it's time, because you've waited in line for a City Hall. And so having been a former city employee for almost 8 years, I know that you do need that. My experience was building that police department. We went through what you've done thus far, and we went out west, we went out east, we went here, we went there, we looked everywhere. And it was painstakingly, and not only that, but we looked at, joining the sheriff's department, cohabitating, and then also with the fire department. And we did all of those things, and so we did our due process, which is part of the thing that you do, which is what you've been doing, which is what the city manager's been doing. But ultimately, you have to listen to the voice of the people. And after the police department experience, we moved into that building in July of 2011, and it was just a godsend because they'd never had their own place before. They'd always been with City Hall or even in the basement of the city auditorium, or then the third location was the sheriff's department, and of course there was sewage issues with the prisoners plugging the toilets and such as that. And then finally they've got a really state-of-the-art police department, which is awesome, and that's what I hope for your City Hall. But the other thing that I learned through that experience, and then also through H2020 Deberg, at that time was the director, and she asked me if I would chair Safe and Attractive Neighborhoods and Business Districts. And I was kind of hesitant because I was about to retire, but then she reminded me, well, you're not going to go anywhere. You might as well do it. And I thought, well, okay, I will. And plus the pay was really good, right? So I retired and I charged forward on that. But as I walked the uptown, I got to know the people even more so than what I knew them as the police chief, and we surveyed and we did all kinds of things. The number one reason that people came uptown was for government. Okay, that was the number one reason. And so as I looked uptown, we had the alleyway problems. We had live lines that were laying on top of the buildings uptown. Got with utilities, got with the city, invested tons and tons of money on fixing those alleyways. We called the people that inspected them. Nancy York was part of that. We called ourselves the Alley Cats, and we had a good time doing it. And we also helped to revitalize the uptown from the statues to megabucks investments, I want to say in excess of $300,000 over the course of maybe 3 or 4 years, where you redid painstakingly each one of those alleys because of the water that was running off the tops of those buildings. Utilities stepped up and redid all of that electricity. They've made a lot of investments in the uptown, downtown, uptown, and you changed the name. You went from a one-way to a two-way. You ripped out all those lights and you put in stop signs to make it a viable location. And we talked with the council and said, if you want people to have a revitalization, people have got to be able to live uptown. And they can't live uptown unless they can park uptown. So you guys, you redid that city ordinance we had where if you park your car overnight, it's going to get towed, right? You went through all of that, right? And when I came to town, I want to say there was probably about 20 or 25 bars in the uptown area. And all your resources at nighttime, that's where they went. The rest of the town was wide open, and it just blew my mind that we would spend 2 and 3 and 4 hours a night policing the bars uptown. Not that the bars are bad, but the way that they had done it over the years, it just wasn't right and it didn't make sense. I learned through all of those things how important and how much the people of Watertown love downtown, and that they love City Hall and they love their representatives. And I just know from those experiences that you need to locate downtown. And the street department, I can remember riding with Mike Rye and some of those guys way back when. And I said, if you could go anywhere, where would you go? And you know what? They picked the spot that you bought. That's where they wanted to go way back when. So you're doing the right thing. I want to encourage you again. I like what Kay said, because that's what we're supposed to do, is encourage and build each other up. And so you're in my prayers, and I just say keep on going and keep on trucking, because I think you're doing the right thing, and God bless.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Councilman.
Former councilman. My name's Don Roby, a citizen of Ward E. Both of the previous speakers mentioned H2020, and I think our community has a lot of pride with that whole process that went down, because by any stretch or any measure, that was a very successful process. In fact, the consultant that led that on our behalf from a company called Market Street, he wrote a blog that after we got through the big phases of H2O, his quote was, "I've seen the pinnacle of civic capacity, and that is Watertown, South Dakota." So it was a very nice article about how well the community responded to H2O. I bring that up because I want to just make a comment or two about process. Regardless of a result, if the process is sound, people can live with the results, even if they don't agree with them. I think the process of H2O was very sound, and everybody's pretty happy with the results we've had of that. Mayor Holeen and I traded email here recently on an unrelated issue, and that was kind of the gist of the email exchange, and that is that regardless of the result, the process played out well. So I want to say thank you for having this meeting, because the process is playing out. I appreciate what the council and the mayor and the staff's doing. I appreciate all the citizens behind me as stepping up and speaking and making their opinions known. And I appreciate you folks listening to those opinions. I think you said this is the 4th meeting on this, so I really commend you for allowing the process for the citizens to speak. I won't get into too many details. I think others will probably get into that, but I do very much favor keeping things downtown. I think it's kind of the face of the community. and the city's done a nice job supporting downtown. Some of that was referenced earlier, but several projects, development, streets, alleys, what have you. I think that to move City Hall out, just kind of like we puncture our tire on where we're going down the road. I think it just kind of looks wrong. It sometimes is viewed as the face of the community. So my opinion is very much in favor of keeping it downtown, but I also want to just say thanks for facilitating a process that gives everybody a chance to speak. And I'm confident that most people do want it downtown, so I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Tim Oviatt from Ward C. I have a letter here that I want to read to you from Donis Roberts. And it's addressed to the Watertown Chamber of Commerce, but I think he means City Council. He always says what he means, but you know Donis, as well as to Mayor Jolene and the city manager. I had hoped to be at this meeting tonight, but DDR Books has a book signing this evening that was planned in January. Thus, I will share my thoughts about a new city hall by letter. I would favor a downtown location unless there is no suitable property available downtown. I know that Mayor Jolene has previously advocated downtown locations, so I presume that such properties exist. For my part, I think you have an ideal location with the current Wells Fargo building, which the city owns, and the current city hall. Knock it down and build an appropriate facility that could easily be connected to the bank building. I know that the bank building might be hard to retrofit to all of the city needs, but that could be accomplished with a new adjoining structure. A second site that seems appropriate to me is the former Elks property, very handy across from the courthouse. It would have to be multi-story, but logistics could be solved by elevators. The property currently being discussed would seem to me problematic by being on a curved highway that frequently has high traffic. Likely there would have to be traffic lights, and these can be dangerous on a curved highway. The total environment of the property would seem less appropriate for City Hall than either of the two properties I noted, and there are many additional downtown options. I hope you have a good discussion. Sincerely, Donis Roberts.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Mayor, Manager, my name is Chuck Sherman. I am here representing the Friends of the Goss Opera Hall. Recently, the Board of Directors met and we moved to make a motion, and that motion was, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Friends of the Goss Opera Hall urges the City Council to keep the City Hall downtown in order to support the continued maintenance and development of a vibrant downtown. We believe this is an important quality of life issue for the entire community, as well as the economic issue for those downtown businesses who are struggling to survive the current economic challenges. That motion was passed unanimously. Board members voting in favor who were present were Milt Carter, Kristen Henderson, Brad Johnson, Prudy Calvin, Carrie Stager, Michael Makins, Dustin Sinner, Ann Hansen, and Mike Cartney, plus myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name's Mark Roby, 346 North Lake Drive. Most of my comments, Mayor, have been stated, but I'll be a little redundant, especially my former debate coach. I think he might have stole my case. I'm not sure. I fully support keeping the City Hall downtown, and hopefully rebidding will make that more cost effective. And as a result of that concept, I've thought of a few ideas I haven't heard discussed yet, so I'm going to throw those out to this evening as well. But downtown, as we heard and as I see, is undergoing a renaissance, and I think keeping it there is the only place that it should be. Secondly, I also support moving City Hall into the Wells Fargo building, but number one, keeping it downtown is more important. To lower costs of the keeping it downtown and even in the Wells Fargo building, I think Don has had a smart idea, and it was one I was going to comment on. Why don't we just refurbish the second floor here into city council chambers and maybe a meeting room or two, and use this facility for a few more years until such time the bonding debt levels come down, and then tear this down and build a new city council chamber building and attach it to the Wells Fargo building. But I think there's life left in this building, even with all the issues, and it could be a great interim solution to saving some money. And you could also continue to use as an alternative site the underutilized Watertown Event Center. There's plenty of space out there every day, every week, where the council could meet and hold buildings. Staff could join via Zoom as they do now, or whatever the product you use, Teams or whatever, to help offset that as well. I'm concerned with the combined building project out on Highway 20. I like to refer to it as East Henry. That something's missing when you look at the roads that are going to have to be redone. I've driven that intersection every day for over 20 years. I came into work every day, went home often, and came back. I've driven it every day. It's a dangerous corner, it's a curved corner, and it's a banked corner. To keep the City Hall traffic, you have to extend 10th Avenue across that road. And then you allow the truck traffic from the maintenance shop to use the 9th Avenue. I get that. But taking 10th Avenue across that road, you're going to have to lower 10th Avenue and Highway 20 5 to 6 feet. To do that, you're going to have to back it up probably to the bridge to start taking down that hill. And I'm concerned that the cost estimates don't show anything for reworking that intersection. I agree with Donis in that a five-way intersection, you're going to need stoplights, and I don't think the DOT will allow you to keep a five-way intersection at that point. So then you're going to have to close that county road, the shortcut to 14th Avenue that hundreds of motorists use every day. I know that because many of them pull out in front of me when I round the curve and nearly hit you because they get so tired of waiting. So it's a dangerous intersection as is. Adding more traffic, adding City Hall traffic there, I think will be adding to the problem, and I don't see those costs associated to that whole effort in the estimates for that project. Finally, if you need to combine something with the street department, I think the ideal part of the city that ought to be combined out there in the stockyards is across the street. The Parks and Recreation, poorly underutilized maintenance shop on the north end of the zoo. Move that across the street and combine those two, freeing up some space for the zoo, which they need, they're out of space, and putting that whole group and their equipment in a much better facility across the street. So if we need to combine something, do something to share out there, that's what you ought to do, is move that across the street. So I'm all for keeping it downtown, number one and always. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Roby. I will just comment, it's public record. It was at one of our previous meetings where we did discuss that in the future, the Park and Rec facility would possibly move over to that street department location. That was definitely something that was discussed at a public meeting in the past. So thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Nancy Terbach Berry, and I have been privileged to be asked by Joy Nelson to share her thoughts with you. Joy is busy tonight again, as she is on most Tuesday nights out at Joy Ranch hosting an event there. So she asked me to read this to you. I am often one of the first people folks meet as they consider moving to Watertown. In that capacity, I am asked time and time again about our downtown. Downtown revitalization is going on all over the country, and our downtown is important to people thinking about moving here. As someone who has lived here all my life, I know it's also important to longtime residents, those who have spent a lifetime here. I have very fond memories as a child spending time downtown where all the action seemed to be. Even as a child, you could feel the sense of community and relationships generated by downtown activity. That energy was lost when the 1970s brought the idea that downtowns should be abandoned in favor of development farther out. When H2020 came, followed by the charrette in 2015, I was so pleased that the residents of my community voiced, without a doubt, that they wanted downtown Watertown revitalized. I participated in that process in which the citizens of Watertown spoke loud and clear about the importance for the whole town of restoring a vibrant, energized downtown. Today, we are well on our way to accomplishing that very thing. Excitement from our residents about what has happened downtown in the last few years is incredible. To pull City Hall, the monumental center of our community, out onto Highway 20 is not what our community said it wanted. I am truly sorry I cannot be at the meeting Tuesday night, but I am taking this opportunity to tell you without hesitation that I am absolutely opposed to moving City Hall to Highway 20. As someone who has spent I'm making her younger than she is. As someone who has spent 40 years in the real estate business and has been involved in a large amount of development, I can tell you that would be the wrong move. It would be a grand mistake, very short in vision. Land is always to be used for its highest and best use. In all my years in development, I have had my challenges with the City Hall on zoning, what is conducive to a neighborhood and what isn't. And the city has always taken a hard line on these matters. That is why I am totally bewildered that this could even be considered a viable option. It is diametrically opposed to what the city has always taken a stand on. Is this the vision and perception we want to display for our community? I think not. Highway 20 is known as, and always has been known as, an agricultural, trucking, and veterinary service corridor. You would have a hard time convincing me that the best use of the Highway 20 site would be for City Hall. The street department belongs there, but not City Hall. I know we have kicked the can of City Hall down the road for so long that it can be tempting to just jump at a decision to finally get it done, even if it is a poor decision. But this would be a poor decision. The financial justification offered, even if it were accurate, does not warrant a move to Highway 20. As a business person, I am not convinced that claiming construction on Highway 20 might be cheaper doesn't mean a decision to build there necessarily is financially sound. The land the city owns on Highway 20 has value that can be recouped when the land is used for its highest, best use, for things appropriate to that neighborhood. That would be a more financially sound decision than building a city hall where it doesn't belong. There are dollars to recoup by selling the land remaining after the new street facility is built. Finally, I have heard the term emotion thrown around as if preferences characterized as emotional should be disregarded. That is wrong. People may feel emotional about this because emotion is so closely tied to community. The best decision for community is not to move City Hall out of downtown and out to Highway 20. I will emphatically say again, I am absolutely opposed to this, and there is a groundswell of Watertown residents on the same page as I am. So I say you need to step back and listen to the people you work for, especially those who invest so much year after year in making Watertown better. See how they feel about this before making this decision. This is their community. Sincerely, Joyce C. Nelson, owner-broker, Haugen Nelson Realty, Inc. I have personally made my views known at the second meeting, but I just have one more thing I want to share, and I won't repeat myself. It was about 25 or maybe 26 years ago when then Mayor Barger, who was frustrated and tired of the notion of an event center always being kicked down the can that was getting kicked down the road, asked a number of citizens to serve on a task force. I don't recall for sure, but my memory of those meetings is that there were probably 20 of us. She asked me to chair it. And the idea was to get us off the dime, get an event center that we all had felt we needed for a long time, and figure out where it should go. This was well before anybody had heard of Strong Towns. It was long before David Barry came and resurrected the Goss from a junk heap, and it was well before I had invested in downtown. But still, there were a few of us who thought we should seriously look at putting an event center downtown, especially as any of you know that if you travel, already 20 to 30 years ago, other communities were already learning that downtown was a key to their revitalization. We could not get the votes. There was not support. That just seemed like too big a pill to swallow. And so the event center was located where it is, on a highway on the edge of town. I am not very proud of that. Frankly, if I drive north on 81 and stop in at White and Comus or Crawford, it's probably more lively than it is most days at the Watertown Event Center. I think it was a real mistake that we did that, and I hope we don't make another one that's similar. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's been a while since I've been up here. I appreciate the opportunity to, that you let some of the has-beens come up and talk. I look, and no offense, but a lot of us have been around. I used to be the young one, and now all of a sudden I'm catching up. But Megan Olson, formerly with the Chamber of Commerce and downtown property owner. I had the pleasure of visiting with a few of you this morning on the phone, and for those of you, just pardon my redundancy, but I'm here to tell you that where we're sitting right now is something we only dreamed of 15, 20 years ago. When I came on with the Chamber of Commerce originally, the downtown was the downtown, right? It sort of had, and Randy and I had this conversation this morning. There was a gray cloud. Nobody wanted to deal with it. It was divisive. It was gross. People just didn't want to have those conversations. We only dreamed of what we're seeing today, and we're living it. We're at the 11th hour. I travel now with my new job all over the state of South Dakota. People constantly say to me, what do you got going on downtown? I was downtown for dinner. I was downtown for a show. What's Watertown doing? What's the secret? We've almost arrived. We're at the 11th hour, and by pulling City Hall out of the downtown, I think is absolutely would be a traumatic, terrible mistake. So I won't take a lot of time, but that really just echoes everybody else, and appreciate the work you do. I know that a lot of hours, a lot of phone calls are involved in this, and it's important. But the work and keeping downtown is important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Alan Stager. I'm a citizen of the community, and thank you for this opportunity to explore this topic. You guys have done an outstanding job with 4 or 5 meetings on the topic. I'll state I support a downtown location for City Hall. And I know that gives you guys some challenges, and I'd just like to talk about, if I were in your seat, a few questions that I would have. And I think the area that you haven't explored enough is how to pay for it. And one of the opportunities you might have is building the right size and investing the right amount of money in a street department facility. We've seen some numbers flashed on the screen, and I hope you guys make that spreadsheet available so that we can really explore it. Construction costs are all over the board. If you read any newspaper or look at things, a nominal amount that was stated for the street department facility earlier was about $300 per square foot. That seems like an outrageous amount of money for a street department facility, despite the climate that we're in. And I'd hope you guys would dig into that a little bit further. You know, just to put that into perspective, the ice arena is about $400 a square foot, with the complex mechanical, electrical, and public facilities required in an ice arena. I struggle with that dollar amount for a street department facility. So without diving into a lot of detail, I just say I think you've got a real opportunity to invest the right amount of money in a street facility to enable you to invest more money in our downtown area in the right type of city hall that we can be proud of for generations to come.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I think I know everybody here. I'm Mike Davis, and I worked in this building 65 years ago, and so this building is getting old. That one over there is only 50 years old, so it's got a long time to go yet. And I'm talking about the Wells Fargo building, and this is downtown. This is where City Hall belongs, and I've been coming downtown for a lot of years, and so I can't see trying to put City Hall The other guy said Henry, but it's closer than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm following up, I guess, Megan, on the folks who have retired. I'm Jan Deberg, and I had the opportunity to be a part of the H2O 20 Visioning Initiative. Beginning in May of 2012, this collaborative, community-driven process began. It was administered by the Watertown Area Community Foundation and facilitated by the H2O 20 Steering Committee, a diverse group of community leaders. It was a tremendous success due to the participation of over 2,200 residents. That's over 10% of Watertown's population, who provided input through interviews, focus groups, and surveys regarding their vision of a preferred future for Watertown. As the vision plan for Watertown, submitted by Market Street Services, Inc. states, one of the 5 key findings and focus areas identified was safe and attractive neighborhoods and business districts. Watertown residents frequently mentioned the community's aesthetic character as an area they would like to see improve by 2020. One of the objectives established was to transform Uptown Watertown into a vibrant city center while preserving its historic appeal. Over the next couple years, private property owners and the City of Watertown made notable improvements. Watertown Art Walk was started, major progress was made in improving our alleys, and the city hired MSH Architects of Sioux Falls to conduct a downtown study and to conduct a public forum called a charrette in November of 2014. The MSH Architects Downtown Watertown Vitalization Report states, other measures that will facilitate critical change will be the infusion of significant capital investments in the downtown through new city and county public facilities, an open-air public space, or any other government facilities under consideration. A healthy, walkable downtown that invites the public to participate in its government and supports the concept of community should be the city's goal. There may be other reasons as well, but these 3 alone, I believe, are significant because more than 2,200 citizens told us in the H2O 20 visioning process, because of the recommendations by MSH Architects, Inc. in their report, and because of the input of those participating in the charrette, I believe that the new City Hall should be in our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Last chance. Okay. I'll close public discussion. Are there any future council items read ahead? Public comment section. Is there anyone who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda? See no. Councilman Villauer?
Might be appropriate. Do we have anything new to report on the flooding situation? I know you've been meeting regularly. Is there something new to report tonight with what's happening?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor, City Councilman Villauer. We've met on Monday. We've been meeting weekly here at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, over at the basement of the Sheriff's Office in the jail facility there. The county and city officials get together. We hear from the National Weather Service. We get projections on what the flood levels are anticipated to be throughout the next coming days and weeks ahead. And how it's progressed to this point is it's gotten better and better as far as lower and lower flood predictions. So we're in a certain minor flood event that we're supposed to be achieving with the runoff coming at us from up north, and just tiptoeing into a moderate flood event, which really is not anything of significance, nothing to be alarmed about, But there are standard protocol and measures that we have to carry out with the utilities, with the Public Works Department, several folks, kind of all hands on deck. We installed just today some HESCO baskets that serve as a damming effect around some of the lift stations. We have to protect some of the lowest sanitary sewer lift stations from flood waters from the lake, from inundating the sewer system. We obviously don't want that to happen. And so that's been accomplished as of today with, again, several forces, too many to mention, but the police department, volunteers from students at Lake area, the street division of Public Works, utilities department, all hands on deck event today. It was outstanding, the amount of work they got done. So that's where we're at. We don't anticipate implementing the full HESCO basket protection measures that we've had to do as recent as 2019. We think that we can get by with just protecting these low-lying lift stations and continuing to monitor from there. That group meets again on Thursday, was it, Manager Mack? Yeah, Thursday we'll be meeting again and reassessing everything.
City Manager Mack?
I would just add, for individuals who may desire sandbags, you can get the bags themselves at the Sheriff's Department, and the sand is out at Sailboat Landing.
Thank you. I'll close the public comment section. There's no reason to go into executive session, therefore the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, second by Councilman Bueller. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.